This is the time of year where guys are driving around and gives you a chance to call and talk, or they call and talk to you. Here's one very interesting quote from an insider who was out recruiting the other day. They had this to say about teams that are winning and getting the college football playoff. They said, the programs that are getting there have superior talent, but they also have older players. And if you think about Georgia's certainly 2021 team, and then the return of Stetson Bennett in 2022, as well as Cedric Van Pran, and now you're coming into 2024, and you're looking at guys like Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Carson Beck, all coming back, Xavier Truss, Tate Ratledge. It's not just that Georgia in 2024 has has really gifted players like Malachi Starks, um, you know, Carson Beck, some of these running backs that are around, the wide receivers. It's that they have older players that are really good too, and I think it gives you in a changing world of college football, it gives you some grounding along the way because the teams, the coaching really matters a lot. I'm not trying to take away from coaches or anything like that, but the kids, there's a certain, there's a feeling on any team, um, and whenever the team is pushing itself more than the coach is pushing the team, then you've got exactly what you want. And I think that's hard to come by with younger players. And when the younger players, the leaders of the team that are younger, are excuse me, when the younger players are the leader of your team, it's harder. They don't know all of the battles that you go through in a season. You don't play well, but you need to win. You play really well, and you think you got it all figured out. There's a lot of different stuff that goes into all of this, and player-led teams matter a lot because they take accountability for things. I was writing some stuff down the other day about the captains of some of these teams, and it was old players. In 21, like I'm just going off memory, it was like Zamir. Zamir White had been through all of it. Zamir White, there could be. I'm a big Zamir White fan. I shouldn't hide that fact. I think it's relatively clear, but Zamir White, with everything he went through when he was growing up, let's just start with that, and then what the two injuries, essentially after his high school career, but before he got started at Georgia. I mean, Zamir White could have totally just gone off in the distance, felt sorry for himself, but that's not what happened at all. And you see, he was not a highly selected NFL draft pick. Well, he's starting to pour it on these days. If he were with a more functional um, organization out there in Vegas, I think that he would be in even better position. But in 2023, he really picked it up out there at the end of the year for sure. At the end of the year for sure. Two of his last three games, he goes for 100 yards or more. So Zamir is picking it up in a very big way. But it wasn't just him. It was Jordan Davis. It was Jamari. And it was N'Kobe Dean, who is one of the adults immediately when he got on campus. But those guys weren't willing to, be like, oh, well, it's all good. We really are good and we're just going to check. No, I think that's the part about when you talk with folks in the SEC, around the SEC, their perspective always comes back to that you got to get the right people in your organization. And if you do that, it will take care of itself. Um, the younger players, of which Georgia has a lot of really good ones. Well, I'll just use Dylan Raiola as a great example, okay? He's a younger player. Now, it doesn't mean he made the wrong decision going to Nebraska, but that was a herky jerky decision at the end. And would that be would that was that is that the way that Carson Beck dealt with it? Over these last 4 years or something like that. Or certainly lately, was that the way that Carson dealt with his return to Georgia? Both Raiola and Beck had the decision to go to Georgia in 2024. Carson Beck's decision obviously affected Dylan Raiola's decision. That's why he's at Nebraska. But I think the way that you deal with things when you're older is different than the way that you deal with things when you're 18. And so that difference of a few years is important. But that wasn't all that was said. But the programs that have the programs have superior talent, but they also have older players. Think about who won the national championship this year. Their starting quarterback this year was their quarterback of the future in 2021. Now, he got his lunch eaten by Georgia in 2021, but 2 seasons later, he goes on to win the national championship as well. I don't know that experience matters necessarily, although it's hard to have experience when you're young. But I do think that older players help mold and push teams forward. Who will be the captains of this team? I don't know, right? But I would imagine quite clearly Carson Beck would be one of them. Tate Ratledge would probably be one of them. I would think that Smile Monday very well possibly could, and then I would say probably Malachi Starks, but I'm not sure. It could be, when you're choosing from guys, that tells you all you need to know. You've got a lot of older players coming back. Truss, Brinson, Stackhouse, Ratledge, Beck, Mondon, Chambliss. I mean, Chambliss been around a long time too. And when you've been around a long time, you're not just going to give up on what you're fighting for the whole time. But it was really good discussion. One of the other things that I talked with someone else about was you want to recruit guys who have a hunger. Now, what does that mean exactly? This person that I was talking to was talking about that players from certain areas of the country don't have, they felt like, and they were stereotyping, to which I pointed that out to them, and they agreed, but said the point was still the same, which is that, you want guys who are eager to play, ready to play, and that can be developed. If you're from Gwinnett County, and, although I grew up in DeKalb County, I don't mean this in a negative way towards these guys, because you could say this about North Fulton or Forsyth as well. If you're from Gwinnett County, you are one of the most processed, ready-to-play players when you get to college. You are what we call a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, in many instances. So those guys, they are in their community football organization. They're in Gwinnett Football League, GFL. They're in community football for when they're when they're 12. Then they're going to the middle school, and then the junior varsity, and then the varsity. And in that time, they are learning all of the mechanics of all of it. I mean, you go to a high school game in Gwinnett County sometime, usually in September, you'll see they do this often, that they'll have community night, and they'll bring out all the kids that are in the Peachtree Ridge organization or the whatever organization. And that's why it's really, really good football. I mean, it's really good football. And that's why they win a lot of state championships coming out of there. That, and they have huge schools. More than 1 million people live in Gwinnett County, but they are, they're working out every day. This person was like, man, I want somebody who's not eating right. I want someone who's got, wants to do things for their family. I want somebody who's, that you can take and give them coaching. The guy, that you're going to get that in other parts of Atlanta, in South Georgia or rural Georgia. You're going to get that in a lot of parts of Florida. You're going to get that in a lot of places. Metro Atlanta and like places like Dallas, or definitely in Texas, generally speaking, or I would say parts of Ohio and a lot of the private schools in California, you're going to get what you get. Those guys are what they are, and you're not necessarily going to develop them more. But can you go find the right players? I mean, think about Javon Bullard. And by the way, Jefferson has a really good, if you live in the Athens area and you're thinking, I don't know where to, Jefferson High School, and no one tells me that, Jefferson High School is a great place to send a student who has, well, it looks to me like just a student, but generally speaking, if they're interested in sports, Jefferson is a great place to sit. I've been up there enough to know they take it very seriously, but it's not over the top. I think sometimes the Gwinnett schools go a little too far, but anyway. Um, what I forgot where I was going with all of that, other than to say you want to get the right guys. With Bullard, for instance, you're talking about a kid from Baldwin County. Most people don't know where Baldwin County is. That's Milledgeville, and I may have even gotten that wrong, but I don't think so. The very raw kids who are trying to Zamir White was not raw, but Zamir White was hungry. James Cook was hungry. And when you get the right combination of both of those things, it's dangerous. There's no question that Stetson Bennett never hurt for a meal or land or stuff. Stetson Bennett was hungry for respect. Stetson Bennett wanted that, and he got that over time. And you want players who are self-motivated, who can go get the job done. But when you talk with people who are at this time of year driving around recruiting and bored, and that's what we're talking to them on the phone. And we're still seeing what's going on with Alabama. I think there's still some stuff that could you know bang up some things along the way in this new college football era, depending on what happens at Alabama with assistants and so forth. But yeah, that was just a couple conversations I had over this past Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I can't remember all the dates, whenever it was, but there were guys who were really wanting to, do you have a hunger was one of the best quotes. And the programs that are winning in big ways have superior talent. They also have older players. I think that's the biggest thing right now at Georgia. They have really good players and they have older players too.